Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chairman and CEO, Peter G. Peterson Foundation, Michael A. Peterson.
Thank you, and welcome to our 9th annual Fiscal Summit, Debt Matters. This year's summit is the first one without my father and our founder, Pete Peterson. He left us on March 20th at the age of 91, and since then, life has been very different for our family and the staff at the foundation. You all know my father cared deeply about this mission. Some called it an obsession. I was asked recently what made him so passionate about our national debt. And I think it was two things. First, the values that our family holds. There is a Greek word, ekonomia, which means to save for the future. His father came to this country from Greece with no education, no money, and no English. And he saved nearly every penny for the future so that my dad could get a good education. For my father, this concept of saving for the future became a moral imperative. And what our country is doing now is the opposite of ekonomia. Second, it was that my father was the beneficiary of the American dream. And he saw our growing debt and unsustainable fiscal outlook as a direct threat to our future. So as a successful dreamer himself, he cared deeply about making sure the next generation has the same opportunities to achieve the American dream that he was so fortunate to have lived. At lunch, we'll show a brief video about my father's life. And this foundation and all the work we do would obviously not be possible without my father. So I thank him, and we all thank him. One thing is clear, my father would want his work to go on, so let's get to it. This year, the theme of our fiscal summit is Debt Matters, because we thought Washington needed some reminding. Last year at this time, we were already on an unsustainable fiscal path. This structural mismatch between revenues and spending, as you know, is caused by three key drivers. First, the retirement of the baby boom generation, so we have 76 million baby boomers coming through the retirement system. Second, increasing longevity, so everyone's living longer, which is great, but it does mean more years in retirement. And third, high and rising healthcare costs. The United States has the most expensive healthcare system in the world. So you take a big group living longer and put them through that system, and this is the fiscal outlook you get. These drivers, combined with insufficient revenues and the compounding interest, is what creates the enormous growth in our debt. However, instead of addressing these problems, recent legislation has made our outlook far worse. So here is a review of the fiscal damage that was done in just the past few months. Waiting for the table. Do I need to hit that? Okay, there we go. So, the deficit this year will be $243 billion, just in this year alone, larger than it was before this legislation. Over 10 years, it's $3.6 trillion in additional deficits from this legislation. Interest costs, okay, so the incremental interest just from the legislation is $1 trillion more. In total, we'll be spending close to $7 trillion on interest over 10 years. It's a staggering amount. And by 2027, our debt will be larger than our entire economy. It's staggering. And if you look even further out, this is debt as a share of GDP. 60% was considered a reasonable maximum by many economists, and yet this is the path we're on as of a year ago. Significant increases, obviously very unsustainable and damaging to our future. And here's where we are now. So they added considerably to it, and it compounds and compounds and leads to debt levels that are close to 200% of GDP. The worst part is that we're piling on debt during a time of economic expansion. While the economy is strong, now is the time we should be getting our fiscal house in order. But we're doing just the opposite. In fact, the U.S. stands alone as the only developed country whose debt to GDP ratio is projected to grow over the next 5 years. All these other countries have recovered from the cycle and have entered periods of fiscal responsibility. This is one area where it's not good for the United States to stand apart from the rest of the world. So why is the debt so important? because it will affect our economic future. The growing debt crowds out private and public investment that would grow our economy. It hurts confidence and lowers certainty. It increases the likelihood of a fiscal crisis and reduces our fiscal flexibility. And it also risks the safety net. Without a stable budget, the safety net and those who rely on it are in jeopardy. Our best hope is that we've hit bottom, if you will, that we've finished doing the damage and now we can begin to renew our fiscal health. It's certainly time for a fiscal reset, and what better time to start that healing process than at this summit. We have a full day for you, including thought leaders and experts in a range of policy areas. A panel titled Dangers of Debt, which brings together market experts to discuss how the fiscal outlook will threaten our economy. We have an excellent group of elected officials here, including Senator Jeff Flake, Senator David Perdue, and Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. Just before lunch, you'll hear about an exciting new initiative we just launched with the Ford Foundation called US 2050. This project looks at demographic, socioeconomic, and fiscal trends that will shape our nation over the coming decades and the policy choices that are necessary to prepare for it. At lunch, leading energy, tax, and fiscal experts will discuss the potential for a carbon tax, and we'll also welcome this year's winners of Up to Us, a competition to raise awareness that we ran on 100 college campuses nationwide this year. After lunch, former Energy Secretary Ernie Moniz will discuss the connection between America's fiscal, energy, and national security, and then we'll finish up with the rest of the members of Congress. So to kick off the day, we're very pleased to welcome two leaders from the Problem Solvers Caucus. Representative Tom Reed, a Republican, and Representative Derek Kilmer, a Democrat, work together in this unique caucus to find areas of common ground. And that's never been more important than it is today. And they'll be interviewed by Kimberly Adams from Marketplace. So thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoy the program.